Brother, I need to talk to you. This might sound strange, and you'll probably think I'm crazy and I've lost my mind. Well, okay. I'm amazing. I'm incredible. I'm a miracle, a dream come true. I'm marvelous. I'm beautiful. Guess what? So are you. People, it's becoming clear. I can feel it down in my soul. I know that I am you, and you are me. Oh, and I am grateful for the simple things that we take for granted every day. I can walk, I can talk, I can use my mind, okay. And I'm amazing, I'm incredible. I'm a miracle, a dream come true. I'm marvelous, I'm beautiful, and guess what? So are you. But that don't mean that we're better than anyone or anything. It's a call to come together and accept responsibility and be amazing, be incredible. Know that you're a miracle, a dream come true. We're marvelous, we're beautiful. Guess what? So are you. That's right. So are you. That's right. So are you. Woo-hoo! Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Please join me in prayer. And we give thanks for this day where we come together to celebrate the building of boundaries, to create bridges, living in truth, staying in truth, bringing ourselves into truth, stepping up authentically to be the true selves that we have been created to be here in this world, spreading love, spreading joy, loving everyone and everything where they are. We give thanks for the volunteers who've come together to make this celebration possible, for our AV team, for our wonderful musicians, our practitioners, our ushers. We give thanks for every soul that is in this sanctuary that has come to celebrate the oneness of the life that allows us to live out loud. For all who are looking at this message a few days later, who are divine expressions of the one life, we build bridges to reach out to each and every one of you. And you build bridges to reach out to everyone you come in contact with. I know that Spirit speaks through our Reverend Jen to give us the gift of the meaning that we can take away from her message to apply to our lives, to empower us to spread love and beauty everywhere we go. I release my word into divine law where it is already acted upon by the universal mind, the one infinite power, the infinite good that is each and every one of us. And together we affirm this by saying, and so it is. Our words of inspiration, our first set come from Marcia Sinitar, author of Elegant Choices. To say who we are, even to ourselves, first means we progressively develop a sense of our own potential and boundaries, that we pinpoint cherished values as well as those rules, customs, and beliefs that mean nothing to us. We must decide how we want to invest our energies and conduct our lives. Only then can life take on fresh meaning and express our most personally relevant purposes. From Paul Ferrini, when each of us is free to be who we are, equally mutual respect becomes firmly established in our lives as human beings. Each of us learns to claim our power and supports the other in claiming theirs. Trespass diminishes. This is the world we are creating together, but always it starts with us. From our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes, you rob no person when you discover your own good. You limit no person when you express a greater degree of livingness. You hinder no person's evolution when you consciously enter into the kingdom of your good and possess it today.
When we show up in our authentic nature, we are telling the world who we are. We're taking a stand for that being that lives within us, for all that we are, all that we desire, all that we want, and we're allowing others to see that and to hear that through our language. How beautiful would this world function if we all had that kind of clarity? If we were all willing to take a stand and say, you know what, that's not working for me. I don't need to shut you down. I don't need to argue with you. I just need to speak my truth, my voice. In this process, we find out that we're building bridges. And I think we've been really confused about this over the years because I think we thought that if we told others what our standards are, what our boundaries are, what we will and will not do, what we will and will not tolerate, that we are pushing them away, and that's not the truth. We're opening up the terms of engagement so that we all know how to connect with each other. And that's a beautiful thing. And I've always said that whatever you say to another human being, if you speak it from that space of love, it is never heard wrong. But if you speak whatever words you have to speak to another and you choose not to speak from love, there isn't a dang thing you can say that's going to make it right. So we want to look at this today because as we continue our theme for the year of living out loud and this month for cultivating authenticity, today we're looking at boundaries build bridges. When I first saw that talk title, I thought, well, that's a different spin. And then I started processing this throughout the week, and no, this is exactly right. This is perfect. You see, boundaries are where each one of us ends and the other person begins. Nancy Levin has a book entitled Setting Boundaries Will Set You Free. She defines in this book that a boundary is a limit that you set to define what you will and will not do, what you will or will not accept in others, and what you will not tolerate. Now, those words might seem harsh, and if you're not a person who's good at establishing boundaries, that sounds obnoxious. I can't do that. Oh my gosh, do you know what people would say to me? And that's just, again, not the truth. If we want to set that space, that platform for us to show up authentically, we're going to have to speak. We're going to have to connect. We're going to have to communicate and talk about what works and what doesn't work. Boundaries are the container in which our authentic self resides. Now, another place we have challenges here is that we establish our boundaries, we tell people what they are, and they violate them. My mother was a boundary violator. Didn't matter what room I was in, didn't matter what I was doing, didn't matter if I asked for a little time to myself, didn't matter. She wanted to be with me, she was going to be with me. If she had something to talk about, she was going to show up. Now, we can get angry when that happens, or we can look at that and go, okay, so how big is this for me with this particular relationship? Do I need to, stomp my foot and speak it again, or do I just need to possibly move into that place of being a little more compassionate and understanding of this particular relationship? For me, it was easier to just be loving and compassionate and just know this was Mom. And for many years, I didn't know those were boundaries. I didn't even have any idea until I practiced the same behavior in another home with an adult male that I was married to, and I found out that, oh, no, you don't get to go through his closet and throw his stuff out. How would I have known in the home that I grew up in? I didn't have that answer. So we also want to be accountable to ourselves and hold others accountable in this process. Sometimes we may need to remind one another of what is going on. If we fail ourselves in establishing our boundaries, we become victims. We become disgruntled, resentful, hurt. We feel disrespected, when all it would have taken was a nice, calm conversation to explain who we are and what we choose. I found a story about a woman who was walking along a beach in California. And as she was walking along, she looked down and she saw a bottle in the sand. And she reached down and she picked it up, and it had a cork in it. And so she popped the cork out, and a genie popped out. Now, this particular genie was a little exhausted of being pulled out of the bottle on a regular basis. And so what he said to her was, he goes, okay, I'm your genie. I have been doing this about 4 times already this month, and so here's what I need from you. I just need you to cut to the chase, tell me what your wish is, I'm going to grant it, and we can both go on our way, and I get back in my bottle. And she's like, oh my gosh, I get a wish? Oh, what would my wish be? Oh my goodness. And he's like, if he had feet, he would be tapping his foot. But anyway, the genie's waiting, and she's processing, and she's, oh, you know what? I've got it. I live in California. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I am so afraid of flying that I just can't get myself to get on a plane. So my wish is this: build me a bridge from California to Hawaii, and I can drive there. And the genie's looking at her, and he goes, are you crazy? Do you have any idea how much concrete and steel it would take to build a bridge from California to Hawaii? Do you know, I don't even know how far down we would have to go with the structure in the Pacific Ocean to hold this bridge up. No, it's not going to work. I can't do that for you. Come up with another wish. So she's standing there, and she's thinking, and she's processing, and she says, I know. I want you to make for me a man who understands me completely. I want a man who understands why sometimes I want to be held and sometimes I want to be left alone. I want a man who is caring, intelligent, witty, attractive, prosperous, handy around the house, and most of all, sensitive. I want a man who loves opera and Christmas and long walks and has no interest in football. And after a couple of seconds, the genie looked at her and he said, so about that bridge, did you want 2 lanes or 4 lanes? Now, I love this story because, first of all, we have a woman trying to figure out what she really wants. And that's one of our key messages today, is to go out of here and figure out what do you really want, what really serves you. And then we have this guideline of what we will and will not do for ourselves and for one another. And yes, it's said in fun, and if you find a genie on a beach, you go for it. But what happens to us too often is we're not quite sure what we want. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. And instead of taking the time to figure it out, we kind of allow ourselves to be swayed with the majority or go in a specific direction. Or someone shows up in our world and we start to discount all the things about them that aren't what we want, and we choose to settle. And that's never the answer. Nikos Kazantzakis gives us this beautiful quote. True teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging them to create their own. This is another place where we get tripped up. We become someone's confidant. We become someone's advisor. We become someone that is deeply connected to another human being. And what we have a tendency to do, because it's in our human nature, is we get upset when they don't follow our advice. We get upset when they're not doing what we want them to do. Whereas in this particular quote, we can build a bridge, we can become that bridge to that next level of experience for that individual, and then we can just absolutely step away and allow them to be and do all that they can on their own. Boy, that's a tough one. If you've got kids, that's a tough one. To go to that place that oh my goodness, I need to let them go. I need to let them go, and I need to let them figure that out. So this week, I want us to look at how we can be a bridge to one another and not be a crutch. Because when you become a crutch, someone begins to lean on us more and more and more. And that's not what this is about. We want to establish those beautiful boundaries of engagement. And when we do this, we free up so much energy to engage, to connect, to create. Anything else has a tendency to look like control. I'm not here to control anyone. I'm not even here to control myself, and I like the idea of being out of control. No, I'm sorry. I like that idea. I went somewhere else for a second. It is not my job to control any of you. My job, the actual job that I do for a living as a minister, is to encourage, enlighten, uphold, support, love, demonstrate compassion, and all the rest is up to all the rest of you. So let's think about that this week and how we can look at this idea of bridging one another together with this idea of connection. My dear friend Anonymous gives us this quote. Lack of boundaries invites a lack of respect. So here's where some of the work comes in with this. When you establish your boundaries, you can't walk away and expect everyone to do and adhere to what you've asked. We forget. We aren't paying attention. We slip into our own habits, and we fail to think about who we're interacting with. We have all of those things that are going on at the same time. When we don't establish our boundaries, it's often because we have this mindset that says, well, you know me. You know what I want. You know what I like. Why are you even acting that way? We think we want the world to be mind readers, but that's really not the answer, because if the world was a mind reader, we'd all be in a lot of trouble pretty much all the time. So we've got to speak up. We've got to use our voice. And when we don't, we start to feel like we exist only for the sole purpose of others. And we begin to feel alone and disregarded. We complain when others don't respect our boundaries. If you don't respect my boundaries, that's an opportunity for us to have a conversation. It is not an opportunity for me to walk away from you and be disgruntled and resentful and upset. We're human beings. That's a key piece to this process. If we want to live our lives out loud, we have to show up in our authentic nature. In order for me to do my beautiful dance of life authentically, I must express to others what I'm about and who I am. Prentice Hemphill gives us this quote that says, "Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously." I love this quote. Life is not either or. It's not I either do it your way or I do it my way. No, it's not about that. It's about collaboration. It's about getting together and cohesively making decisions that work for all of us, for the greater good. That's what it's about. Without our boundaries, we overextend. We expend way too much energy on others. And too often, we don't have that energy to give. We're already going through some stuff of our own. We're feeling depleted. And we're afraid to say no when someone asks us to help them or support them. What is that fear about? I think for the most part, for many, it's about, if I say no to you, you're not going to love me anymore. You're not going to be my friend. We're not going to have this relationship. And that simply isn't the way it works. Each one of us is called to love ourselves first. Through loving yourself, you learn how to love one another. We simply need to figure out a little bit better ways to communicate. So stop asking why they keep doing it and start asking why you keep allowing it. I call it the doormat syndrome. I lived it for many years of my life. I was the doormat. I just laid there and did whatever anybody told me to do. If somebody wanted to walk all over me, okay. I thought that was what love was about, which is absolutely nuts, but I did for a while. I thought that's what it meant, that I give up everything and you get everything, and that's how that works. Who is the author of your story? Who is the person that's writing the story of your life? Get in touch with that person and start creating the pathway for the good, the highest, the best for that individual. When we are in relationship with someone who absolutely refuses to align with our requests, to comply with what we're asking when it comes to our boundaries, that gives us an opportunity to choose some discerning behavior. Maybe this individual just doesn't get it. Maybe this individual isn't the individual that should be in my close inner circle. Maybe this is a person who just needs a loving conversation. We get to make those choices for ourselves. I had a friend years ago. What I said about him was that he was not a person who was willing to commit. He couldn't make a commitment to save his life. But what he said about that when we had a conversation about it was he said that he was afraid to commit to any one person for fear that the next person who came along would be the right person for him, and now he's already made a commitment over here, which boggled my brain at so many levels. I was having a hard time kind of figuring that out, but what I got was that he believed that if I don't make a decision, if I don't make a choice, then I'm still open to all of the possibilities of the universe. Is that true? Is that what we believe? Because I absolutely believe that spirit, universal wisdom, the divine right idea, is seeking what I'm seeking for me and my benefit, and I get to speak that. And when we go into spiritual mind treatment, we do this wonderful thing that says this or something better. When we're praying for you, we're praying for whatever you're asking for or something better, something absolutely more phenomenal than what you could have imagined. This individual was looking at the lack side of energy and the fear that there would be something lost in that process. And the truth is, spirit could possibly give us more than we ever imagined. How incredible is that? Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, tells us that you need not ask what others have done or how they've done it. Be yourself and express life as you find it. Never imitate. Trust the self, find the self in God, and God in the self. That's a beautiful quote. Never imitate. I would imagine that there's a number of us that are either in this room today or viewing this message online, and we're thinking about those times as a kid when we were told to be more like somebody else. Why can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you be more like your brother? You know, your cousin would have never done something like that. Didn't we get some of those stories? And so what happens is all those beautiful seeds were planted for us, and we started thinking that I have to try to act like someone else. And when we started to try to act like someone else, it was very uncomfortable. It was exhausting because it wasn't the truth of who we are. So as Holmes is reminding us here to simply be authentic, we are also reminded no one can read our minds. We have been given skills for communication. We get to use them, whatever those skills are. And the piece about this is we get to step into that world of courage. It takes courage to be true to yourself. It takes courage when you're in a relationship, in a conversation, in a group environment, and everyone is kind of going along with the flow, and you're thinking, this isn't working for me, and you feel like you need to speak up. For me, anytime that's happened, there's always been 2 or 3 other people that are like, yeah, I kind of felt that way too, I just didn't want to say anything. That used to happen to me quite a bit in business meetings in that wonderful world called corporate America. So we want to become more connected to self, that's the small s with the small s, self within, and then through that we are more connected to the greater self, which is the God self, which is the capital S in that process. Take time this week. Get in touch with your limits. Not limiting yourself. I'm not talking about that, but how far can you go? How much can you do? How much energy can you expend? What works for you and what doesn't? I take a lot of downtime. And I sometimes have beat myself up about that because I think I live alone. For heaven's sakes, what am I taking downtime from? But I am spending a lot of time on the phone, and I do interact with people on a regular basis. There's a lot going on. And sometimes I just need to step back, take a couple breaths, and have a 10, 20, 30-minute time where I'm just kind of staring off into a corner of the room, just allowing the energy around me. Once you have that true realization of who you are, the boundaries show up without effort. Because when we know who we are, we're constantly in touch, we're constantly asking the questions, we're constantly checking in. Russell gave you this quote earlier, and I want to share it again because it is priceless. Not just the kitten in the picture, but the quote itself. You rob no person when you discover your own good. You limit no person when you express a greater degree of livingness. You hinder no person's evolution when you consciously enter in to the kingdom of your good and possess it today. We live in an abundant universe. There is more than enough of everything for everyone. We just have to find the ways to utilize it the best. If I have a need, if I need something, I am not saying I need to have this and therefore you and you and you don't get to. That's not how the world works. That's not the universe we live in. And sometimes when we're looking at this idea of communicating our boundaries, and I know for many of us, when we hear these words, we're thinking of an individual, we're thinking of a relationship, and we're thinking, oh, boy, that doesn't feel like a good idea at all. We get a little scared, we get a little, it feels difficult, it feels challenging. It's a practice. That's all this philosophy is about, is practicing. And every time you speak up, you'll be easier to speak up the next time and the next time. Because what happens for us is we have a tendency to treat each other how we've been treated. And how in the world could how I've been treated be the right way for me to be interacting or treating any of you? Be brave. Ask for what you need. And don't misinterpret my language here. I'm not saying that the world is revolving around you and that it's all important to you. That's not what I'm talking about. But we need to ask for what we need. We need to tell one another what we desire, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. Not with the expectation that everybody's going to go, oh, yeah, that's a better idea, let's do that. I'm just expressing who I am. I'm just trying to set that precedent for how I want to interact with you in this relationship. If a friend came up to you today with a $20 bill in their hand and said, do you have change for a 20? And you said, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. It would not be the end of that relationship. You are simply telling them, I don't have what you need. Oh my goodness. Did you just hear what I said? Someone asks you for something and you don't have what they need. There's no harm, no foul, other than to say, I'm sorry, I'm not the person that can help you or support you at this moment, at this time. When we speak our truth, when we stand in the truth and the integrity of who we are taking that energy and we are professing our authentic nature for the world to see. And when we do that, we become examples for everyone else to do the same. How beautiful. Ken Wilber is the author of a book by the name of No Boundary. He tells us this: every decision we make, our every action, or every word is based on the construction, conscious or unconscious, of boundaries. To make a decision means to draw a boundary line between what to choose and what not to choose. We're making decisions. Sometimes we need to alter them. Once we know our boundaries, it is an act of love to share them. Repeat that this week. This is an act of love. It invites others to understand us at a deeper level. It builds a deeper connection, a deeper understanding with others. And when those boundaries get crossed, it doesn't mean anybody burned down the bridge. It just means that we need to have a heart-to-heart conversation so that we can reconcile the situation, so that we can move forward together. When we don't do this, the automatic response is judgment. When we don't share how we want to be treated, we judge others for how they treat us. When we establish our boundaries and nobody seems to be listening, we judge them for not listening. Let's move out of that world of judgment and move into that world of opening up, clearly communicating, clearly embracing one another. Authenticity is a practice. The more we practice being our authentic selves, the better we are at showing up in our true colors, living our lives out loud. Let's choose that this week. Please pray with me. As we just breathe into this moment, into this time, right here, right now, we know that God is present. We know that beautiful spirit in back of all things, in back of all creation, all life, is here now. In this room, in this space, in the energy that surrounds us, in the air that fills us, in that beautiful heart space that lives within each of us. It's all good and it's all God. And as we know this, we know that we are connected. We are united. We are unified. We are connected one to another, to all life, and to God, in God, and as God. And because of this, we realize that there is a power within each of us. And this power is ours to demonstrate the truth of who we are, our unique, individual expression of the divine. I am here on purpose. I am here for a reason. So is each and every one of us. And let's just take that knowingness, breathing it in this week and allowing ourselves to reflect within on that inner being, how we are, who we are, how we choose to be, how we choose to show up. And let us do all of these things with that heart full of love for one another, knowing that all of this process is simply about building bridges where we can connect, where we can join together, where we can be in contact and conversation with one another. I give great thanks. I give great thanks for the very power of prayer. I give thanks for the opportunity to speak these words on behalf of the New Dawn community and everyone who is listening and chooses to be a part of this. And I give thanks for that power within all things, that amazing presence that we can utilize in our lives. It's all good. It's all God. And it's perfect. So as we just breathe in and let this go, we release these words into the law of mind, knowing it is already done. And all we need to say together in one collective voice is, and so it is.
This is an Indigo Girls song, and it's all about good work. So thank you for having me this afternoon. Lovely to see you all and sing for you all. And let's enjoy the inner work. And thanks, Reverend Jen. Clearing webs from a hovel, blistered hand on the handle of a shovel. I've been digging too deep, I always do. I see my face on the surface, I look a lot like Narcissus, a dark abyss of an emptiness standing on the edge of a drowning blue. I look behind my ears for the green, even my sweat smells clean. Glare off the white hurts my eyes. Gotta get out of bed and get a hammer and a nail. Learn how to use my hand, not just my head. I think myself into jail. Now I know a refuge never grows from a chin in a hand in a thoughtful pose. Gotta tend the earth if you want a rose. Had a lot of good intentions, sit around for 50 years and then collect a pension. Started seeing the road to hell just where it starts. But life is more than a vision. The sweetest part is acting after making a decision. Started seeing the whole as the sum of its parts. I look behind my ears for the green, even my sweat smells clean. Glare off the white hurts my eyes. Gotta get out of bed and get a hammer and a nail. Learn how to use my hands, not just my head. I think myself into jail. Now I know a refuge never grows from a chin in a hand and a thoughtful pose. Gotta tend the earth if you wanna rose. My life is part of the global life. I found myself becoming more immobile when I think a little girl in the world can't do anything. A distant nation's my community. A street person's my responsibility. If I have a care in the world, I have a gift to bring. I look behind my ears for the green. Even my sweat smells clean. Glare off the white hurts my eyes. Gotta get out of bed and get a hammer and a nail. Learn how to use my hands, not just my head. I think myself into jail. Now I know a refuge never grows from a chin in a hand and a thoughtful pose. Gotta tend the earth if you want a rose. Happy spring, everybody. Enjoy that earth.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.